A good day to you all and welcome to Baobab Chats. Today we're talking about multiracial and multicultural families. People coming in from different backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds, and how this happens in our society, how it affects us in society, the misconceptions that we have, what people think of each other, which culture do you follow? Which way of life do you follow? How do you deal with friends and family? What are the joys and what are the sorrows of having this? And I joined on the panel today with people coming across the world. We've got Annabelle and Robert joining us from the US. We've got Sylvia and Alan joining us as well from the US. We have Sabina joining us from Italy. And to kickstart the conversation, we'll start with you, Sabina. When you hear multicultural or multiracial families, as someone who comes from a family that might be considered as being part of this, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
I guess in a way, open-mindedness. I think being part of a multicultural multiracial family has allowed me to be, I think, more open-minded, more accepting of a whole group of people. It's taught me to value love above everything else, and not to be put kind of your own personal religious or cultural rules above just loving your family members. And for me, I think that's kind of what I think about.
Wow, that is great. Is there something that the other guys you resonate with as well?
Yes, I agree with that. So I'm actually a researcher and I study multiracial families and multiracial individuals, and there's a lot of research showing that they are more open-minded, and so I think it really helps to kind of reduce prejudice and bias and stereotypes when you are able to get to know people from different cultures more closely. And when they're in your family, of course, you learn more and meet more people from that background, and form meaningful relationships with them that allow you to sort of break down those different barriers and understand and respect those cultures and become less ethnocentric, so like less valuing and thinking that your culture is the best or the way you do things is better than other groups.
Yeah, just to tag on to that, for me personally, it's the differences that you kind of realize that there are differences that you have, but then like Sabina was saying, you become open-minded to these differences and you become more accepting, and you realize that there are differences, but in the end we kind of have a similarity that we can kind of resonate towards.
Sylvia and Ellen, you need to unmute. Sorry.
Being a multiracial, family, to us, we don't see people as he's white, she's white, she's Asian, because it's just being together is confirmed that it doesn't matter. We are all the same.
Yeah, I don't look at anybody as a colour. A situation came where we went to a shop with a friend. We had to buy something, want some paint mix. But in any case, this person had a very bad attitude. And as I walked out of the shop, I said to my friend, I said, I don't like her attitude. And he said, yeah, I would have complained. He said, but she was black. And it didn't even occur to me. I looked at him and I said, God, that never even entered my mind. What entered my mind was the fact that she had a bad attitude, the colour. It shocked me a bit because I thought, oh yeah, she is. I never think of things like that. I always look at what the person is and how they're reacting, not what colour they are.
Right.
And this bloke my friend is an Indian, funny enough. But he was obviously, and he's married to another Indian, so perhaps he hasn't got the culture that we've got, being in mixed mixed marriages, like, you know, interracial marriages.
Yeah, and maybe whilst we're there, I just want to you know, to pick on what you have all said. That can I just ask this direct question? Do you feel, especially like from the point that Sabina started with and Annabelle and Robert picked up on it, do you feel that, you know, people from multicultural, multiracial families are more considerate of other people than the others? Because I can say maybe I come from a family of the same, my mom and my dad are generally from the same kind of tribe and you know, everything. So I would say, but I actually think I am more accommodating to people, and I love people for who they are. But I find this as an interesting trait that you have all mentioned. Maybe Annabelle, you can come in. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So I think part of being more open-minded and understanding of differences is that you are considerate. So, you know, I might interact with someone of a different cultural group and see that they behave a certain way, but if I understand the history of their group or the culture or the country that they come from, and I might be able to better understand why they behave that way and not attribute it to sort of negative things, but rather just the unique differences that they have. So I think we tend to sometimes make assumptions about people from other countries or other racial ethnic backgrounds to think that, oh, well, that behavior is rude, or they're not, you know, making eye contact with me. But when you know other cultures better and you've interacted with a lot of people from other racial ethnic groups, you understand that, oh, that's actually how they show respect in their culture. And so you become less judgmental and more considerate and understanding of the way that they behave and perceive the world.
Wow. And then maybe now from the one that you know, Alan and Sylvia started there, the point about how, you know, some of the experiences you have had. So let's talk about the joys, right, and the sorrows. Like, what are like the exciting things based on coming from, you know, different backgrounds? Because I think like when I was growing up, I used to admire when I see someone that maybe is coming from a mixed race or from a, you know, intercultural, because I think, wow, so you can go to this side and experience this side, you can go to that side and experience that side. But I don't really know, you know, having been in there, how you, what you are the things that you can say actually great about it, and what thing you can say maybe are actually not so great about it. Yeah, Sylvia. And Ellen.
Okay, I'll start with what is not so great about it. People's assumptions. Whenever we are out in the public, people assume that we are not together. Like, for example, if we go to the bank, we normally like to walk up to the bank teller together, and I stand next to him. I'm always asking, excuse me, can I help you? And he has to say, oh, no, you know, she's my wife, we are together. Or like even at work, like when they meet my husband first time, oh, he's white. I'm like, yeah, he is white. You know, it's like they're actually reminding me that he's white, because in my eyes, I don't see my husband as a white man. He's my husband, that's all. Just like if he was black, you know, I'll just see him as my husband. So those are the things, like when you're in the public, you know, but we don't make it a big deal.
No, we have fun with it.
Yeah, we don't really, yeah. So sometimes we actually make the people think that way. Like, you know, like that example I gave you, like when we go to the bank, now he goes first and I wait a little bit, then I go after, so that they can really get the shock of their life. Like, what are you doing here? You know, ma'am, excuse me, ma'am, you know, because, you know, when you go to the bank, it's kind of private. You don't want people seeing what you're doing, your money and all that stuff. That's why we do it. We do it just for fun. So what do you think are the positive side of us being
must I say, before Alan starts saying the positive side, after seeing your TikToks together, so guys, you must check out their YouTube channel. And after seeing your TikToks, I believe what you're saying, because you guys do a lot of funny stuff. So I think I believe what you're saying right now. Yeah, you can go ahead. Or maybe before Alan gives us the other joys, does anyone wants to resonate with what they've said?
I mean, I can relate, well, not with my husband, but with my family or with my mom, who is a lot paler and doesn't look like me. Also, my brother is from a different father, so he also doesn't look like me. So I often, no one thinks I'm part of that side of the family. So I'll be with my mom and no one thinks that she's my mom, or they're shocked that she's my mom. Or they might say something funny, like my father's Indian. So they may say to my mom, "Oh, you have an Indian daughter. That's so difficult to have a daughter with a different culture to you." And she is completely shocked because I'm her daughter. I mean, we don't have this like different culture. We are a family. So these are the like strange little things that people, like assumptions that they make, naive, ignorant assumptions. So I can completely resonate with that kind of experience. Also with my brother, no one thinks that we're related. So it's always interesting and complicated sometimes.
Yeah. It's funny that you said that, Stanford. I had a meeting with college students yesterday, and I had them read a paper about Black, Asian, multiracial families. So they had interviewed Black, Asian, biracial individuals, and one of the students who read the paper said, "Well, I didn't know that biracial, multiracial people have struggled with their identity. I just thought it was so cool that they have these multiple cultures, that I was so envious of them," which is sort of similar to what you were saying, where it's like, oh, people are jealous that we have these different cultures that we get to, learn about and enjoy, which is true. But yeah, there's a lot of challenges, very similar to what Sabina and Sylvia are describing, in that people make assumptions. They're not used to seeing multiracial families. So I myself am biracial. I have a white father and a Taiwanese mother. And of course, Robert and I are in an interracial relationship. So that's another level, where he's Mexican-American. So we have 3 different racial groups sort of here. And I know in my family, sometimes when I would go out with my white father, some of it's not even that people are blatantly making comments, but you feel self-conscious. Like, you're kind of wondering, like, well, what do people think about us being together? Or, like when my grandfather started to get dementia, my father and I went to visit him, and he thought that I was my father's wife. And, there's a lot of stereotypes in the world of like older white men with younger Asian women. And that was obviously very uncomfortable. And I'm always worried, like, when I'm out in public, do people think that I'm my dad's wife? Which is just like, because they're just not used to seeing these sort of multiracial families. And I don't know if you want to share your unique family background too, but
I guess I could share a little bit. I was raised by my mom, but my stepdad's Filipino, so my mom's Mexican. So I kind of have some type of multicultural upbringing. So my brother is actually Filipino and Mexican. So I think for him, he struggles with just being accepted as being either Mexican or Filipino. That was like kind of the biggest struggle. I remember family members would be like, "Oh, so do you feel more Mexican? Do you feel more Filipino?" And for him, as being both, he kind of gets into this position where he's like, "Well, okay, I have to decide which one I want to be in." But we've had this conversation, and I told him, it's not about deciding if you are both. You just kind of enjoy everything you're kind of given. So, but that was the only difficulties that I've seen.
Yeah. Okay, now that's good. And maybe coming back to you, Sylvia and Alan, because you opened this, and Alan was going to start talking about it as well from his experience and the good side.
Okay. Well, the good side, I've got a lovely, beautiful wife. That's number one. That's the top of the list. But yeah, I mean, travel and that, you get to experience her country, and she took me around all Africa and what have you. I mean, you get that's what I enjoyed, traveling. We enjoy traveling in any case, but I enjoyed the traveling of it. I mean, as living here, I really don't know what to say about that. The good side about it is
where you've tried like African food.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
No,
I love African food.
Madora, he's tried Madora. He likes
Saza,
and he's trying different foods, and he tries to dance to our African music. We're fun doing that.
Yeah, on TikTok.
And the best thing is our daughter. Have you seen our daughter? She is perfect.
No.
When you mix black and white, oh my God.
Yeah.
Our daughter is beautiful. Everybody talks about it. Everywhere we go, your daughter is gorgeous. So that's a plus for us, right?
Yeah.
So Matt, can we say then when you are together and with your daughter, then people understand that no, they are a family.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When our daughter is there, they add 1 + 1 straight away. Okay. They must be.
Yeah. She's getting older now, so she's not often with us now. She's 17 now, so she's going around gradually. More as a pity, but that's our life.
But definitely, when our daughter is there, people, don't really. They know straight away that we are a family.
Yeah, but just one thing that I'm interested in isn't it though just us, a nature of us as human beings to identify those who are different from us as different, and it's not necessarily that people pick up on people that are coming from we either have to distinguish ourselves based on race. If we can't distinguish based on race, we distinguish based on culture. If we're from the same culture, it's based on family. If we're from the same family, it's based on whatever else, and complexion and whatever. And maybe it's not necessarily just about this multicultural things, and that as a people in general, we just look at other people who are different from us in a different way.
Well, I think really for me, culture is how you are brought up. It's what's normal for you. It doesn't matter what color you are. If it's normal to eat saza and madora, that's normal. Some people get gross just looking at madora, like you eat these worms. But to me, it's like, what's wrong with this? This is, I was raised eating this. So your culture is whatever, you could be in Philippines, you could be in India, Pakistan, you could be in Africa, whatever is normal there. That's your culture, right?
Yeah.
So I think people don't understand that. So it doesn't matter what color.
There's a direct question here from Paul Israel. Do you speak up for your spouse when it comes to things they do contrary to your culture? Do you speak up for your spouse, when it comes to things they might be doing that is different from your culture?
How do you mean speak up? I'm confused.
Speak
by
up.
That. I mean, I don't understand that.
I'm thinking maybe he's talking about, say, like you said, eat madora, eat a different kind of food, or dress differently, and your family or your friends are like, the way your partner or your family member dresses or eats is not right, but this is according to their culture, that is what is fine. Do you explain to people to say no, this is for her, this is how they do it? Paul, online you can make a comment if what I'm explaining the question is if it's not right. Annabelle, I thought you wanted to say something.
Oh. I'll let Sylvia and
okay. All right. Okay.
Well, I guess we're now married, but we're just newly married.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of it.
Well, I mean, the only thing I can say is that perhaps it's our friends, but we don't get any of that from our friends, do we? I mean, I've never had anybody say to me, "Why are you wearing that?" Yeah. I've never come across it, so I can't. Perhaps it's just the friends we pick. I don't know, but I've never come across that.
Yeah. So let's have a chat about creating your own cultures. Now, usually if you're coming from different cultures, the other ones, say Christmas, Others maybe celebrate Christmas, others don't celebrate Christmas, and you can have different cultures coming together. How do you balance the cultures to say, I'm just interested in knowing? And you know, there are other people, when we said we're going to have this conversation, who said, can we also hear about how do they, or how do people balance cultures, like to choose whether we're going to follow this culture or that culture, or balance the cultures? How do you do that? Maybe let's start by you, Sabina, how you did it growing up.
Well, in terms of, I guess in terms of religious celebrations, because my father is Muslim and my mother, well, she grew up Catholic, but she's not she's not actually Catholic. But basically, the way I can't speak for every family or what's a good way, but I will explain how they did it. Religiously, they view it as a personal choice for themselves, and they just gave me the experiences from their own culture. So I would have Christmas. We would all celebrate Christmas together, and I would also celebrate Eid with my father. So all the holidays, you do all of them. The religious side of things was my own personal choice. I could choose which religion I wanted to follow, if I wanted to follow anyone. And that was just how my parents did it. Dealing with outside family was sometimes a bit difficult because they were a bit more stricter about religion. But in that way, my parents taught me to be myself, but also be really respectful towards my family. So, you know, be myself, but don't do anything that will make them feel uncomfortable about being around me. So don't change myself, but be respectful, understand their point of view, where they're coming from. And that's how I dealt with family events, mixing cultures. I mean, in that way, it was really nice because I got to experience a lot of events, a lot of food, a lot of family love, you know, double the family love in that way. And also it opened my mind to other ways of celebrating things. And I think also made me learn how to be respectful, but also remain true to myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really wonderful that your family really let you embrace both cultures. And so when I do research, I interview a lot of multiracial youth and kind of ask them how their parents taught them about their different cultures, and what most importantly was supportive of them learning about both, because there will be, even within families, where one parent will say something negative about another parent's culture. And I think that's really sad. It can be very harmful. But there are other families where, you know, like both parents will be engaged in each other's cultures. And I think that's like ideal, right? So it's like participating in each other's different like holidays or religious activities. I think that's really wonderful. Personally, my mother, so being Taiwanese, she wasn't so her parents had passed away and she had no siblings. So I didn't get to, you know, meet a lot of my Asian family or learn as much about my culture. I think my mother tried to very much assimilate into, you know, like American culture. But we would still celebrate like Lunar New Year and go to like, you know, celebrate with other Chinese families. And my dad would come along. So I think my dad was always supportive in that sense. And I went to Chinese school when I was really little, like on the weekend where you go just to learn the language. And my dad was supportive of that. I think my mom even made him sit in the class so that he could learn Chinese for a little bit with a bunch of preschoolers. So that would have been a funny sight, I think. But we spend most of our holidays with Robert's family because they're closer. And, you know, that's been very different for me. It's, you know, they're a very traditional Mexican family that we spend time with around Christmas. And they have a lot of traditions of like making tamales all day and doing the rosary, which, you know, like I'm not very religious, so that was very new to me. And it's, you know, are like a little awkward for me, where I'm kind of like, okay, I don't really know how to pray, and they're also doing it in Spanish. I'm like, I just gotta like try and blend in here and just do what everyone's doing. And so I think, you know, you really learn how to respect other cultures, and once you have that opportunity to kind of participate in what they're doing. And I think that's healthiest for the relationship, you know, that we do these things together, and we try to teach our children about like both of the things that we've learned, and let them participate in cultural activities from both sides of the family.
Wow. Sylvia?
Okay, when it comes to balancing cultures, that's where we had an issue raising our daughter. So I was raised in an African culture, British culture, and we are raising our daughter in American culture. So I find that I had to adjust, for me, a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, being Zimbabwean, you know, it's a strict culture when it comes to girls. That's what I'm used to, the way I was raised. Education is very important, so doing your homework and stuff like that. So I found that I clash with my daughter because I'm pushing on, do your homework, do your homework, do your homework. And he's kind of laid back. Not that he says education is not important, but it's the way he does it and the way I do it. To me, I get so into it. Like, do your homework, do your homework. So, and the other thing is like just talking back to your parent. You know, we growing up, you don't talk back. So for him, it's okay, you know, let her be. It's her, she has an opinion. She's her own person, you know. If we're doing something that she doesn't like, she should be able to say, hey, I don't like the way you're treating me and all that. So I find that I have to compromise and adjust on myself. For my husband and my daughter, they can, relate because of British culture, American culture, so they kind of, he gets her. But yeah, that was, it's still hard for me even now, I don't want to lie. I have to actually accept that, okay, my daughter can say, talk to me this way. Not in a rude way, but I'm just saying, speaking your mind. Yeah. And the other thing, us growing up in Zimbabwe, your parents never told you that they love you. We never, I don't know about you, but I think for most people.
I see Annabelle agreeing. So, sorry, Sylvia. Is it the same in your background as well? Because this is interesting.
It's exactly the same. You sound just like my parents. Like,
yeah, there's no I love you. We didn't have a birthday, parties and presents every birthday. Only Christmas. That's when you get a new dress, a new outfit, and whatever. So for my daughter and for him, it's her birthday. We have to do something. She has to hang out with her friends. You have to do something. You have to do something. I quickly adjusted to that. And I had to get used to saying, I love you, I love you, I love you, because I never had that growing up. So that's kind of difficult, I would say. It can be very difficult, but I think I'm doing better, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing better with my daughter.
I just want to quickly engage the comments. We have, guys commenting here. And guys are loving the conversation. Lennon here says, you guys on the panel make it, you make multicultural families look so cute. And to agree with this, Paul says, so it's a lifetime of tourism, so you speak. Great food and life experiences, and some are saying, they have to unlearn certain things from following this conversation. And there's a sort of, a lot of myths and, biases and stuff. Maybe let's just quickly chat about that, because that's also what you touched on, Sylvia, when you mentioned, coming from an African background and, from Zimbabwe, you say, there are some of these things that are not the same in different cultures. But I like the fact that, Annabelle was agreeing with you, more like it's the same in her cultural background, but coming from different places. And I think there are a lot of commonalities in a lot of cultures, but, as a people, we are we are brought up and cultured to think that other people are just so different from us, and we not to necessarily identify those commonalities. What are some of the, now when you're in a family which have got people from different cultures, what are some of the biases that you have had and you just find like, this is funny? People, people don't know it's not like this. Maybe we can start with you, Sabina. You're coming from a white Indian kind of background. What are some of the things that you just laugh about when you hear?
I mean, one of the things, there's a lot, but one of the things I remember quite distinctly is I was with my Indian side of the extended family, with my little baby brother. And he was super cute, and I was giving him lots of hugs and kisses. And one of my family members said, "Oh, that's definitely the Indian in you. White people would never do this." And to me, this was kind of hilarious because I was like, no, my white family definitely, everyone loves the cute baby. So this was kind of a strange, I think my Indian side of the family has this idea that white people are a lot more stoical and, kind of not giving into emotion. And this was a really funny thing to listen to.
I see, Alan. Alan, is that shrug an agreement or a disagreement?
Yes, because I mean, the British thing is the stiff upper lip, and all that sort of nonsense, and so that's what they do believe, but that's not really what it's like. I mean, it's just the opinion people get,
The only truth about white boys, they cannot dance. That's true. Have you seen our TikToks?
I've seen your TikToks, and I've seen your TikToks, and at times I'm just like, Alan, don't fall, Alan, don't fall. Yes, Annabelle and Robert.
Oh, I could say for us, I think one thing I noticed is that her family is very closed, or they like only email each other. And for me, it's more like loving, and like we call each other up every day or every weekend. For her, it's like once a month. Like she hasn't seen her family in how many years?
Like a few years.
And for me, that's like, I'm like, wow, like, family is a huge part of my culture. And for her, when I saw that the way they would talk to each other and how they would never like see each other, I'm like, I don't understand like how you can have that type of relationship with your family, but yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say that's necessarily just because of like my family's cultures, but it is true that like Mexican culture, that one of the traits is they are really close and they really value family like above like almost everything else. And there is research to show that. They even have a term for it, familism, that there's a lot of studies to show like how important family is in Mexican culture. And they would, when they hear that about my family, they just think it's so weird that I don't talk to them or visit them that often.
Yeah, I think it's the same for English people, Annabelle, for us. Once you leave the family home, you leave it. Mm-hmm. And you're gone, and you don't, I'm not in touch with my brother anymore. My sister, don't often, she's never come to see us. My brother's never come to see us. We've gone and seen them, but they've never come and see us. It's once you leave the nest in England, then that's generally it. You're gone.
Whereas for me, my brother is in London. I just spoke with him this morning. We speak every day. We're on the phone every day with my brother.
Yeah, I was gonna say my mom. That's like right now.
She called us when it started.
But this is I think the beauty of it, and this is where I was saying it's interesting when you're speaking about some of this negative or sorrows kind of things that for me, there was always that thing of, so people from this kind of different families, like what Sabina was saying, so like, so you can celebrate, let's say maybe you I'm not sure of the religions, but if you've got different religions, right, from both sides, like, so you can celebrate, for example, Eid at the same time you celebrate Christmas, And I can imagine if you're a kid, then it's great for you because it's always presents and it's always all these, you know, festivities and stuff. That's why one of the person maybe commented and say it's a lifetime tourism, you know, kind of thing. But maybe now also just on the side of what you wish people, like, what are the kind of things that you wish people knew, right? Like, I wish people understood that, you know, life is like this, or I wish people understood that there's actually nothing different between me or someone who's, you know, in this kind of relationships, you know, than out of that.
Oh, well, I think the problem is people must be, I don't know what it is with them, but they tend to stereotype. Even on the news, you see Africa in the news and you see huts and that. And then when you go, say somebody here, an American person here, oh, I went to Africa. And oh, what was it like? How did you get anywhere? I said, but it's just like being in London or being in Houston, you know, in New York. They've got big cities, high-rise buildings.
They think we live in around
yeah,
huts.
they think you'll, you know.
You know, we walk around naked, you know, got no clothes.
But that's what you see on the telly. When I remember even when I was in England at school, they would show you, you know, people in Africa who are always in mud huts and running around with nothing on hardly. And even today, if they talk about these sort of things, that's often what you see.
Yeah.
And I was just saying, people in America don't seem to travel a lot, Americans, so they have no idea of what's going on outside their little community, like, as it were.
Yeah.
For our relationship, one of the huge challenges was her parents accepting me as a Mexican. So they have a lot of biases saying that, oh, he's lazy. You know, like there's a lot of things going around saying like, oh, Mexicans don't work hard, or they're cheap labor. You know, these are all the stereotypes that we have. So for her, when she saw me, when we first met, I was in the military. I only had like a high school education. Her parents are, you know, teaching at a university, so it's a huge standard to live up to. But when they're looking at me and seeing my race and ethnicity, they're like, oh, he's not even up to par with our daughter. So they would always look down on me. And I remember she would show me emails of like how they would talk about me, and it was just like, it was really hard to kind of realize that there are people that like view you as such a low person when you work so hard to be where you are today, and they don't even recognize that besides your ethnicity or your culture.
Yeah, like they made all these assumptions before ever meeting him. Even up till now, they've only met him one time. We've been together for 6 years. So that's always been really sad. And yeah, he, you know, when we met, he hadn't started college, but at this point, in the last 6 years, he's graduated with his bachelor's degree, and he's halfway through getting a doctorate in physical therapy. But they still like think, oh, well, this is how he was when he met, so he must not be that smart. And it's like he's just both going to have doctorate degrees, and yet it's like he's not good enough for whatever reason. I think it's strongly because of the stereotypes that they had based on his racial background.
Yeah. Yep. Sabina?
I think what I wish people, well, for me, firstly, I have some difficulties. I mean, especially now being in Italy, coming from South Africa, explaining to people that I am from South Africa, but my mom is white, my dad is Indian, and even in South Africa, I have problems, but now just kind of finding my identity or trying to get people to understand my identity, I find a little bit tricky, because it's like, not only do I have to explain what South Africa is with all its different cultures, but also that I'm not just from one set or cultural group, and that's also difficult. I also think it can be a little bit like, I find it can be a bit difficult for some of my extended family who are a lot more conservative in their religion. I think my presence in the family is a little bit difficult for them because I'm not religious, and in some ways they really want the whole family to be like a strong religious group, and I kind of ruin that in a way. And from that perspective, I just wish sometimes that I'm not super close with those family members, and most of my family members are really wonderful, amazing, and accepting. But there are a few where I wish I could just, if they could just understand a little bit more that this is me, and I can't really change that for them, but that I want them to live a good, happy life, and I'm not trying to be evil or disrupt their religious purity. So, that's the challenges right now.
Yeah, I think the challenges are, we talked about in the beginning how, as being in a multiracial family, we become more open, but that's not always true of extended family. So I think the biggest struggle in like a lot of multiracial families is the extended family. So the grandparents or the aunts or the uncles, obviously the interracial, your parents, if they're in an interracial marriage, they're open to different cultures, but sometimes their parents are not accepting of that marriage. So like, I know my grandparents were not accepting of my parents' marriage, and then my parents are not accepting of my interracial marriage, right? And so then that is another unique challenge, I think, that multicultural and multiracial families face that is not as, salient in other monoracial families where everyone's got the same culture, so there's nothing to worry about there.
I would be interested to know, maybe before I give you Sylvia, I know you wanted to come in. I'd be interested to know, though, especially from, Annabelle, and with the research that you do, and with all this, because I think the issue of people coming from different cultures or different races, it has become more prevalent now than ever before. Do you think we'll get to a point where we'll end up just having one culture, maybe in the next 100 years? Or what's the projected timeline?
I don't think we will. So cultures are sort of disappearing around the world, which is really sad, right? With globalization and sort of they're losing, their spaces that they used to have and they're becoming more westernized, right? So I think there are cultures that are, I wouldn't say they're totally getting lost, but they're changing, right? So, but that's something unique about culture, and something we need to accept is that it's always changing. And it's hard to say what's right or wrong. Is that is the traditional old way of that culture the only way for it to be? Or can we embrace that, cultures shift and this is what the culture looks like now? But I think it is hard when the influence comes from a different culture, and it's you seeing that the origin tradition of that culture is getting lost because it's being taken over by something else. And so there is a lot of research and conversation about families getting watered down, right? So I think that's a lot of fear that, extended family might have when there's an interracial marriage, is that, oh, well, we're going to lose, the children are not going to. And I feel that because I never got to learn much about my Chinese culture, and I'm really sad about that. Because now I'm like, well, what can I teach my children? Because this is so important to me. And then I also worry about, well, what my children look like. I'm Asian presenting for the most part. I think people look at me and they can tell that I'm somewhat Asian, or, I'm not what we call white passing, which there are a lot of biracial children born white passing where they look white to other people. And then it's even more challenging for them to say, well, actually, I am this or that, and people won't believe them until they show a photo. But I worry that my child won't identify the way that I do, and I think that's something I just have to learn to accept, right? I have to, I can offer them only as much as I can, but whether that's what they start to identify with and what they feel is important to them is not really under my control. And I think that's something that multiracial families have to learn to deal with too.
Yeah. Sylvia?
Yeah, I mean, whether it be wrong or right, I feel myself it would be nice if we were all one culture. It's what I don't understand is when people fight to keep their culture going. where they should be, I believe they should be more open-minded. And there's nothing wrong with teaching your kids your culture. That's fine. How you were, or that's fine. That's great. But to fight to keep a culture, to try and keep other cultures away because you want to keep this culture, I don't agree with that. That is, I don't think that's particularly a good way to go. I mean, there's nothing wrong with people keeping their culture, but to fight to keep it. I think as time goes by and the world shrinks, as it were, and we start being able to step into one room and appear in another room, like, you know, in another country, when things get really easy to travel anywhere.
He's talking science fiction now.
Well, yeah, that's it's not, you know, I mean, the thing is, I remember seeing Star Trek, the first one, and they're going around with these little walkie-talkie, I forget what they called them now, and now we're all walking around with phones in our hands, and they were all walking around with these communicators, and everybody was thinking, you know, this is all science fiction, but it isn't anymore. You know, it's everything keeps improving all the time. And I would love it to one day that we just be one big race, a big human race. And that's what we really are, just the human race.
Yeah, especially like for our daughter, like here in America, she's black, but she refuses that. She says, I don't want to ignore my white part because I'm 50% white and I'm 50% black. So I'm mixed. You know, like when she fills out forms and it says ethnicity, whatever, she always put mixed. She writes it in because I think there's no option for mixed. I think she writes it in. You know, you put other. Because she refuses to call herself black or white. She says, I'm 50-50, so I'm mixed. That's what she's decided. I don't know if she'll change. She's only 17 right now, but she feels that that's who she is. She's 50% white and 50% black, so she's mixed.
And that's interesting. And I think also, you know, in agreeing and disagreeing, I actually think that it would be beautiful for the world to still keep all sorts of cultures and stuff, because I feel that it makes it more interesting. And I think if we are all this one boring, you know, uniform, you know, kind of people, because I find it when you travel, right? Like when you go to a different part of the world and you are so fascinated by these new cultures and finding these new nuances in people that are really totally different from elsewhere, that are really not what you're used to. It can be interesting and stuff like that. But I also agree that our eyes, the changing of our eyes, not focusing on identifying the differences between us, but rather the commonalities between us and those things that make us, you know, a beautiful race after all as a human race. You know, guys, this has been a great conversation and it's been going well. We are, you know, we'll start winding down now as we come to the end of the conversation. And I think this round, I'll just allow you guys to say whatever you feel regarding this topic, regarding this issue. I know you might have, you know, your thoughts, what I would call a parting shot. Anything else you might want to pick on and say regarding this topic in overall. And I see you, Robert, smiling. Is that meaning you're ready?
I mean, I don't have a closing statement, but I just wanted to agree with you. Having these different cultures, I think that's very beautiful. Like, we recently went to Southeast Asia and we were able to explore the different cultures, different foods, different art, religion, and just being able to experience all those things and know that, yeah, there's differences, but there's a lot of similarities. Like, just seeing people go to work or just driving their kids to school, like, those little things that I can relate to, like, and I know that we are doing the same thing at home. Like, just knowing that thousands of miles away, there are people that are doing the exact same thing, slightly different, but we're all, in the end, we're all the same, just having some different human differences, which is, I think, is very beautiful.
Yeah, I agree. I think, you know, differences are not a problem. It's only a problem when we think that those differences are bad. So, you know, it's good to identify similarities, but it's also good to accept and respect differences. And then I guess I would just end by saying that, there are so many more multiracial, multicultural families in this world. It's becoming normal if you look at the numbers, but it's not becoming normal in terms of how society sees and accepts us. So I hope that everyone comes away with this being more open-minded and like understanding a little bit what the sorrows and joys of multiracial, multicultural families are, and just learn to be more open-minded, accepting that when you see two people who look different walking down the street together, that they could be a family, right? That is just how our world is changing, and it's because people are being more accepting of these differences. So I think it's wonderful. We're moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. When you go abroad, I think it's an adventure to go out of the resort, to go back into the centre more, where you see traditional food and traditional people doing what they do. Whereas a lot of people go on holiday and they stay around the resort, they don't want to change. They're incapable of actually wanting to experience. Maybe they're frightened of wanting to experience people of a different culture, with different foods and that. That's what I see when we go abroad a lot.
Yeah.
Especially in Europe. You see it a lot in Europe.
Yeah. Your parting shot, Sylvia and Alan?
Pardon? Sorry, I missed it.
Your parting shot, I'm saying your closing comments as we come to the end, both of you, yeah.
Well, that is really my closing comment, really. That
okay, all right.
Of seeing new cultures and trying new food. They want to stay where you get fish and chips, especially in Europe and England. They stay with the English pubs and they won't go further inland, shall we say, to see what the culture is really like.
Yeah, I think people should be open-minded. Try different things. Find out about my culture. Don't make assumptions. Ask me, talk to me, whether it's at work, whether it's wherever, if you're on holiday or whatever, just ask and be open-minded. And actually, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and don't say, I've never tried that before. Might not like it. Try it. See if you like it. Never say, I don't like people say, oh no, I wouldn't eat that. Why not? You've never tried it. How would you say I wouldn't eat it like that? That's our closing shots, I think.
Okay, cool. Sabina?
I agree with everyone. I think learning about different cultures is beautiful. Experiencing is beautiful. I think that we shouldn't be afraid of our differences as well, because that's also special to learn about how people do things differently. I also think that when you have different cultures meeting, that's often where a lot of exciting things actually happen. If you live in kind of a completely secular world, often this environment can be a bit stale. But when different cultures meet, you get interesting music, interesting art, interesting ideas. And I think that's the really cool thing about becoming more of a multicultural world. Celebrating our differences, not being afraid of them, and actually harnessing them to create new and really interesting things in the world.
Yeah. I would say there's a lot personally from myself that I've learned from the conversation, and in terms of how to deal with things and some certain things that happen. And I must also say that I'm also happy that there are some of the things that I've experienced, especially when I go to different environments where like you were saying, in terms of being in an environment where people just look at you funny. And I found out that parts of the world and some places where you go and identifying as a Black person, you feel that people look at you funny. And how those eyes, at times you feel that these eyes are really speaking deep down into my soul. And you're just like, dude, I'm just a human being like you, and now realizing that even being from a multicultural, multiracial family, or that kind of setup, it can be even more. It's not only when you meet people from a different race from yours, but it can actually be with all sorts of races and all sorts of different environments, you can just experience that. That's something really that I've kind of, you know, learned from this and take from the conversation. But otherwise, thank you so much for this conversation. This has been great. And thank you to everyone who was engaging on the comments. Like I said before, don't drop off yet. So for us to just finish this offline, but otherwise, cheers and bye-bye.